Hello and welcome to the Branner Mako podcast. I have with me today a Stavros Spyrou, and he's a life coach. And thank you for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me, Brandon. Glad to be here.
So maybe we can start with where you're located and how you got into coaching and helping people.
Okay, so right now I'm in Athens,
Mm-hmm.
Athens, Greece. Although before that I was in London, and so I get to go around a little bit. I was born and raised in London, but my parents are from Cyprus,
Mm-hmm.
so the tiny island of Cyprus in the Mediterranean. The work I do, how I got into it. So way back when, let's say around 2013, I would procrastinate a lot.
Mm.
I would procrastinate quite a lot, and not so much that I wouldn't do anything, but enough that it was an issue. Enough that it was an issue for me, and so I found this. I was going through. I was looking at different modalities, hypnotherapy. I was trying that out, and there was some results, but it wasn't like sticking.
Mm-hmm.
Tried like various stuff. I tried like crystal therapy and things like that. By the way, I knew I had procrastination back in 2009, and I was like,
You
so
procrastinated on your procrastination.
I was procrastinating on my procrastination, yeah. And so then through a random luck, through browsing the internet somewhere, I found around something around clearing blocks, like beliefs, limiting beliefs from like the deep subconscious. It's like, all right, let's try that out. Why not?
Mm-hmm.
So I tried that out, and literally I felt the results almost instantaneously. I felt like a weight had lifted off me.
Mm-hmm.
And with that modality, I really liked it. I was like, oh my God. I just felt like, wow. And I had so much more energy after that. So many things then started to happen. And it wasn't just procrastination, because when you clear out limiting beliefs, it affects like other patterns as well, other issues. So I started on that, learning about that. And then, learning about that, training in that, then learning other modalities and doing that. And for the past 6 years, along with that stuff I've learned and everything else, I've been working with high achievers, entrepreneurs, 6, 7, even 8-figure clients, making like rapid change for them in just a short while, short period of time.
So what is it about, is there something unique about these 7, 8, 9-figure people, these entrepreneurs? Likely they often I've been an entrepreneur myself. I'm an entrepreneur currently. There's a push to work 80, 90, 100-hour weeks. If you don't do it, it doesn't happen. Like what do you find their problems are? Are they similar in their solutions, or are they all unique?
Yeah, no, with the, I'm glad you brought up the SM working 70, 80, 90 hours a week. It's because even that, unless you're choosing to work 70, 80, 90 hours a week, there's usually something underneath that's almost like driving them to push that. And not driving them in a good sense. It's more like I have to work 70, 80, 90 hours a week because it gives me a sense of self. It gives me a sense of worthiness for myself. I'm working hard. When I work hard, it makes me good enough. It makes me worthy. It makes me something. So it's almost like I'm chasing something, but I can never chase it. I'm always chasing it.
Mm-hmm.
I get it. I've worked 70, 80, 90 hours a week, or I've achieved that successful thing that I wanted to achieve, and I feel good for like 2 minutes, 5 minutes. And then I'm back on the same thing.
I've talked to maybe 2 other life coaches or mental health counselors, and they both had high pay, high stakes jobs. And they both are much happier, much poorer, but much, much happier people because one ended up going the addiction route. And they just they got stuck on addiction, and they lost their wife. They sort of, and they were just work, drugs. And the other one was just work, money, and also didn't really enjoy the relationships, didn't they weren't enjoying life. They weren't getting anything useful out of life, and they both made the switch. And like you, they sort of figured what worked for them, and then are trying to share their message. Some of them still have businesses on the side, but on the side of that, they're trying to help people like you are.
Yeah.
I
Well,
do. Oh, sorry. Go.
no, I was going to say part of the thing around like needing to work hard. So it's like a block of belief that you can clear. So let's say you were growing up and you formed a belief that you weren't good enough somewhere in your childhood. You don't want to. Do you want to, as a kid, go around feeling that you're not good enough? You don't, right?
Yeah, right.
You don't want to go around feeling that you're not good enough. So you might do a good bit of work at home, or you get praise from your teachers, or something like that. Let's use this as an example. And your parents are really proud of you. In fact, they're so proud you actually start to feel good enough. And you start equating, okay, what makes me good enough is achieving things, is getting good grades. So then you're then stuck on that loop of like, okay, this is what I see in high achievers and entrepreneurs. They form that one of those sort of survival strategy beliefs, if you want, those sorts of strategies that they've done. And so that's what they're running on. And so if you think about it, that doesn't actually give you choice. Because you're trying to get your sense of good enough by working hard. And it's like, I have to do that in order to feel good enough or worthy, whatever the thing is. What I do when we clear this out, you then have choice, you then have options. I can choose to work hard because I want to, not because I'm trying to get a sense of self or sense of worthiness.
Again, reflecting on what you said sort of means something to me in my life. I was the high achiever in school. I got an award when at graduation for the highest grades. And so, but I chased after that. I didn't learn for the sake of learning. I learned for the sake of the good grades because that was my reputation.
Yeah.
And even at university, I only worked hard enough to appear the best and the smartest. I remember coming into school, after a particularly difficult assignment, and everyone would be, everyone is close to the front door, and they were all talking. None of them were able to figure out any of the questions. And, I look over their shoulder. Oh, yeah, that was a little tricky. Oh, yeah. Of course, I still struggled with it, but
you were pretending that it was a little tricky, even though you knew the answer.
Yeah. Because it was all about my reputation and being seen as the smartest. And I chose what field to go into based on how easy it was for me to get the best grades.
Right, okay.
And after that, I chose where to go from there based on how other people would see it. So I went straight from a bachelor's degree into a PhD. I skipped a master's because, that looks smart. And, a PhD student in physics. Oh, all praise Brandon. He's so smart. And I was chasing after that. And then I realized I sort of hit a wall doing research where, I'm not interested in physics. Like I don't have a genuine interest like the other people there. And there were gaps in my knowledge because I wasn't interested in learning the material. I was interested in just learning enough to do well on the test.
Yeah.
And with those gaps, I was struggling, and then seeing everyone else like enjoy what they were doing, I was like, you actually enjoy this? Are you supposed to enjoy things?
Yeah.
And it was this realization. It actually sent me down quite a negative spiral before I sort of came out of that. So yeah, we can get stuck with these beliefs.
Yeah, when you were, and beliefs that can be cleared anyway. So, but when you were like almost like perceived as a smart one, how did you feel in that respect for that moment when someone calls you smart or things like that? There must have been some sort, because of the payoff.
Yeah,
some sort of payoff. You're chasing
for sure.
Maybe it only lasts like 30 seconds or a minute, or like until I mix.
Yeah. It was for sure. Like I looked forward to that morning where I could be like, oh yeah, that was tricky, or yeah, you guys, you weren't able to do the assignment. Yeah, I was.
And so when someone were to call you smart or know that you're knowledgeable and things like that, what did you feel? Worthy, powerful, good enough?
And it so
What was the
I
type of feeling for you?
yeah,
Yeah.
those were all the feelings. Like that was the purpose
Yeah.
of life, was for that. Um,
Yeah. So that's almost like, yeah, exactly like a survival belief, like in motion right
yeah.
there. Yeah.
And it sort of changed when I went into healthcare. Now I'm starting to get my confidence back, but went into healthcare and you realize, like, and for healthcare, I went into it just to learn. Actually, at first, I wasn't going to share it with anyone. It was just to help myself and my family. But even starting to share it, the more you learn, the more you realize healthcare, our knowledge still sucks. The medical system sucks. Even our orthopedic tests suck. Even our MRIs aren't perfect at diagnosing things. X-rays aren't
Mm-hmm.
perfect at diagnosing things. There's just so much uncertainty, and there's so much information, that even we're like, oh, you know all this stuff, and they're like, I know nothing. I almost took offense. I know nothing. Don't you dare say I'm smart. Don't you dare. I know nothing. I know a little bit more about this one topic. Don't you dare. Um,
Well, that's a classic smart person. Someone who knows that they're an expert actually knows that they actually do know nothing. It's someone who doesn't know anything actually
yeah,
thinks they know everything. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
But you've got went 180 basically, like,
yeah,
oh.
yeah. Although,
But
yeah,
you're
continue.
consciously doing that though, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. So that's what
because
I'm saying.
I've
It's not.
made that mistake in the past, and because
Yes.
healthcare is, you can't have gaps in healthcare. You can't assume you know something when you don't, when
Yeah.
someone's
At
health
the
is
moment,
at
what you're
risk.
doing is and saying it's working for you, but it's all like at the moment what you're doing, you're like logicking your way through that in a way. It's very conscious thought.
Yeah,
It's not an automatic thing. So if you
right.
were to leave it on automatic, you'll go back to what it was like before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
or I would probably default to my dark place where, oh, I'm just useless. I'm just useless. I'm just garbage. I'm trash.
Got
And
you.
I was stuck in, because you repeat these things, and um, you can have this self image. Um, and I didn't, like, I told myself all day, every day, you're trash, you're garbage, you're trash, you're garbage, you know
Okay.
nothing. And that that subconscious reinforcement, it was hard to get out of depression, for example.
Right. Yeah.
And so I built up a different block at that time, and I was depressed for a good long while.
Mm.
And it took quite the work to unblock it, unblock
Yeah.
that block. And which
Mm.
leads me to something I wrote down to mention, is you mentioned modalities.
Yes.
And everyone's mind is so different that with a skilled, I guess, leader, leading someone through a modality,
Hmm.
it's sort of universal, but every person's view of the world is unique. And I've worked with a hypnotherapist, for example, and sometimes it just doesn't work. He's like, nah, we tried. I'm not helping you. Go try something else. Like,
Hmm.
he was one of the better ones, because the other ones are like, oh, let me try again. Let me try again. No, he's like, I couldn't help you then. You need, I have a mental health counselor I also worked with. Go see him
Hmm.
next. Try
Right.
that.
Okay.
And that person uses, what was it, the rapid, there's rapid eye feedback. There's a few different
Okay. Yeah.
methods like that. Another person used more CBT, and another biofeedback involving electrodes. uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
and because I don't want people to give up, but sometimes you have to sort of experiment to find what works with you, what imagery works with you, and also you have to come. At least a part of you has to want to change. You wanted to stop procrastinating, and I think there needs to be a little
Yeah.
part that wants to change.
Yeah. But a part of me was also very lazy, so I wanted a quick way. I didn't. So that's why it's like, oh, there's a quick way to do it. Oh, okay, let's do that then. Let's not go the long route and like, yeah, talk about it for ages and ages and ages and like, no, thanks, not for me.
Could we focus in maybe your story? Like, what what was your procrastination block, if you could, like, could you lead us a little bit through some of the methodology into removing that block for you?
Well, some of my beliefs.
Yeah, on procrastination in particular.
It came down originally because it's not the procrastination is never actually the problem. It's what's underneath. So, for example,
Mm.
I'm using procrastination as an example, but we can use perfectionism, we can use imposter syndrome, self-sabotage, whatever you like. But that is not really the issue because let's say someone has procrastination. What they might do, and what a lot of people do, is they actually go on Google, look at how to get rid of procrastination, and it will tell you which books, what to do. But it's actually dealing with, it thinks that procrastination is a problem. Procrastination is a consequence of other stuff. It's not the actual problem.
In CBT, they have what was it? Thoughts, actions, feelings, and they sort of flow
Okay?
into one another. So
Yeah.
procrastination is one of the outcomes, and what are the beliefs or thoughts that lead to that outcome? Are they helpful thoughts? That's how CBT would approach it.
Yeah, no. Um, the modalities that I use or the stuff that I use and I've merged like a few together is like, I'm not trying to consciously get rid of the belief.
Mm.
I'm trying to get rid of the belief. I want to get rid of the belief on a subconscious level because
Okay.
it wasn't created. Your belief wasn't created consciously. So
Okay.
trying to get rid of it consciously doesn't really make sense because it wasn't created. It was created subconsciously. So you want to go back. I think there's an
Okay.
Einstein quote that says you can't. Now I'm paraphrasing here. It's almost like you can't use the same level of thinking for something that it was. I'll find this quote. There's
If you do,
something
I'll put it in
around
the
like you
description
can't
of this
use the same
video.
level of thinking. Yeah, you can't use the same level of thinking to solve a solution because it wasn't created on that same level.
Mm.
So yeah,
There's some logic to that. Again, different things work for different people. I've had some people success with CBT, which is the most common. But what you said makes a
yeah,
lot of sense. And a lot of self-image training and exercises work more with the subconscious. Um, but where you're coming from, I think, is even more direct with the subconscious.
yeah, even more direct. So some of the early stuff I used to do was more like on the beliefs, clear out beliefs. Let's look at your childhood, things like that.
Mm.
But now, so I've merged into last few years. I've merged into something like because I'm always looking for what's faster, what's quicker, what's easier. Well, how can I? A client comes in with an issue, a pattern, a problem they have got going on. How can I clear that in as few sessions as possible?
Hmm.
As in, and I'm not talking about I clear it today and it's come back tomorrow, permanently gone,
Hmm.
never to return. How
Hmm.
can we clear that? So I'm looking for that. So yeah, trying out different modalities and things like that, and using my experience from the last 6 years of working with clients and helping them make like rapid change in such a short time. Like
It is such a rapid
programs like
change.
10 weeks, 10 weeks max, one session a week.
Hmm.
So
For the audience, if you've never had this type of therapy, it really does seem like magic because it works on a subconscious level. So I went
mhm.
through this level of therapy. I did it to myself. Because I reached a certain point where I was mad at myself for leaving such a mess on the counter, and so and it was just so much work. Like, why? Oh, I have to clean it, and it was like, so much energy. And when your
Mm-hmm.
subconscious is working with you, all of a sudden the counter was always clean all the time. I, w-
Yeah.
I wasn't putting in any effort. The counter was just clean. I
Mm-hmm.
would after dinner, I washed it. Like, before I would realize that the dishes would be washed, my subconscious was helping me instead of being like subconscious saying, "No, don't wash the dishes. That's a lot of work. Don't do that. Go lie down." Don't do like the subconscious is constantly influencing us, and so the effects are profound and they're almost magical. when it clicks and when it works.
Hmm. And
Um,
you want to be, yeah, because you want to be in sync.
mhm,
Because that's what I was saying before. When you're trying to solve things at a conscious level, it's like, well, the conscious mind is like 5% ish of the whole brain. And the conscious, yeah, subconscious is like 95% or what's underneath. So it's like 5% of you might be like, yeah, yeah, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do that. And sure, but the other 95% is like, yeah, okay. It's like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. That 5% of your brain is taking so much conscious effort
mhm.
to hold the beach ball underwater. Once you turn around, or once someone says, oh, by the way,
Yeah.
oh, that beach ball has popped right back up.
Mhm.
What I do is almost like taking a fork to that beach ball. Like, say something that's fine. It's gone.
Or it's like getting someone else to hold the beach ball for you.
Yeah, no, no, not even that. I'd say
Okay.
more like in the air out of the beach ball,
Yeah.
actually, because the beach is like,
It makes it
because it's
effortless for
like,
you.
yeah, yeah, it's the effortless thing.
Yeah.
It's the natural self-esteem, the natural confidence, however you like to, yeah,
Could
say it.
you run us through um, an exercise of some sort or an example what would happen in a session? Because you've mentioned talk to the subconscious, it's more direct to the subconscious. But
Yeah.
now I've done similar things in the past, experimented with things. So I might have a picture of what you might mean, but maybe our audience doesn't. So could you run through an
Okay.
example?
Yeah, and I'll give like a sort of example. I can't do it like a full session here,
Right.
and even that won't take that long. But let's just say, so someone would come in, depends on what modality I want to use for that time, but I'll just use a regular one I'll use now. So someone will come in with a problem and we'll figure out what that problem is, i.e., we're trying to get specific on their problem just to see how it feels to them like right now. So, for example, let's say someone has an issue, um, they're going out and they're not speaking to people. So I'd have them just right now, almost like close their eyes. Imagine right now you're about to speak to someone. Um, Notice what feelings are coming up. And they might say there's a feeling of anxiety or stress or something like that. And then feel into that feeling, what thoughts are coming up. And then they'll tell me their thoughts and have them open their eyes. That I do just to get, okay, let's see what it's like beforehand.
Hmm.
That's the first prep bit.
Hmm.
That's the first prep to what we then do, just to see, because after I'm going to go ahead, we're going to have them close their eyes again, get in touch with their body, see what's there, and clear things out. Then afterwards, I recheck that original scenario and they'll have them reimagine the scenario, and there's usually nothing there, or it will just be like, oh, you know what, that massive anxiety I had, but there's still a tiny bit there. Cool, let's go and clear that out as well.
And you mentioned sort of check in with the body. Do you
Yeah,
do muscle testing, or is it more of a mental exercise where they go through and they try to breathe into different sections of the body? Could you
no, it's
elaborate
not.
on that?
I know when you're talking about reading different sections of the body, that's like a parts work style.
Yeah.
And I do have that experience in that. No, I just want to see what the first thing that comes up. Because when we're clearing out the problem, I'm looking at what whether it's a thought, an emotion, sensation to see what comes up as they're going through. And I'm
Uh,
using, like I said, I've got a few different techniques, but yeah, clearing through and really going, because the feeling body is actually the subconscious body.
and it's interesting the reflection in so my wife, I'll use her as an example because just
Yeah.
yesterday or maybe 2 days ago, um, like we have a new baby on the way,
Mm-hmm.
and we're a bit scared of the
Congratulations.
future. And she's like, I feel like I'm lacking bravery. I'm normally a brave person. I feel like my bravery is slipping.
Mm-hmm.
And so okay, let's do some imagery. And I guided her into like an image of basically adversity is forward, a storm, sand in her eyes,
Right.
and okay, I'll have you walk forward. I'm going to give you some resistance. And so I'm just placing my hands on her shoulders. She's like, and I'm just like fingertip pressure here. And I'm like, yep, yep, you definitely are missing some bravery. Uh, I agree. It's
Okay.
being reflected in the way you're responding. And my hope is that today or tomorrow, once we get to having a session, that she should be able to power through me and push me to the other wall of the room. She's a pretty strong woman.
Right. Okay.
Because I
Yeah, so
work,
you're like muscle testing her in a way.
yeah, yeah, which
Right.
often,
Okay.
which actually comes from my more experience working with chronic pain patients, where
Mm.
they get scared to use their body.
Right. Okay.
And it's interesting how the brain is wired that pain receptors or the pain experience can fire based on motion receptor information.
Yep.
So a lot of people think pain is damage when pain is just a warning, and you might be reinforcing that warning. It might be through the nervous system that, oh no,
Hmm.
the doctor said, I have a rotator cuff tear, so every time I move it, I'm tearing it. The brain knows that, so every time you move it, it sends a pain signal to remind you not to move it,
Right.
and so you don't move it, so you're scared, and they're weak. And sometimes we do image training, and I'm not saying everyone's pain is all in their head. Well, technically,
Yeah.
everyone's pain is in their head because it's an emotion. Even if I cut off your arm, it's in your head. But it's amazing how many people go from not being able to move, or be wincing in pain, and then sometimes they're like full strength. I have them punching a punching bag. I have them doing push-ups, and before they were like, ah,
Well, there's quite a few modalities out there, like that are almost like resetting the nervous system in a way.
yep, yep,
There is NRT neuro. There's a neuro reset technique. There's quite a few called NRT, but there's one where yeah, you can almost like if someone has like a shoulder injury or they have problem with their shoulder or with their arm, they use something what's called the law of reciprocal inhibition. So it's like
yep,
I'll use the opposite muscle to like clear that one out. So
yep,
it's like yeah, trying to get that balance, and it's
yep.
resetting that. On the basic levels, you're basically resetting the nervous system, getting that pathway again.
For those
And
listening to this, I have a YouTube video on reciprocal inhibition and post-isometric relaxation. Because yeah, it's a great trick to trick muscles into relaxing, chronically tight muscles, um, and it works fantastic. It's sometimes more of a short-term fix.
no,
Um,
I've seen it last actually
it
a long while. Yeah.
it is not always a long.
No,
Um,
no, I have seen it. I have
oh
seen it
no, no,
with
I agree with you.
yeah, yeah.
I just want to caution people that it's sometimes not, and that's true of all these mental exercises. Um, sometimes you can sometimes you have these miracle sessions, and you it really does feel like you remove this block in the brain, you reset the nervous system, and everything is fine.
Is that for what? For the chronic pain patient, you
For
mean?
chronic pain patients, um, sometimes they need to do rehab as well because they've been avoiding using
Mm-hmm.
something for a while. But sometimes it's magic. And for muscle relaxation as well, the PIRRI is something I do on basically almost a daily basis with patients. Actually, yeah, a daily basis with patients, at least one patient a day. Um, and it's sometimes magical, but it's not always magical because it works on one level of the nervous system, but not all levels of the nervous system.
Okay.
So sometimes we have to go to more what we were talking about before in the limbic system, the memories, trauma,
Yep.
and just resetting it at the muscle energy level, activating
Yep.
one
And
muscle
then
versus
cellular
another
level, yeah, even deeper. Yeah.
doesn't necessarily get to that other level.
Fair enough.
There's also for pain receptors, there's upregulation and downregulation in the nervous system that while the trick does help for muscle tone,
Uh huh.
it doesn't help for necessarily resetting the threshold for which signal gets sent to the brain for processing.
Right. Okay.
It doesn't instantaneously reset that. It can help in resetting it, but doesn't necessarily reset it. Often, to fully reset it, it has to be a signal from the brain going down to reset it, which involves a feeling of safeness, of security, of strength.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's fine, which sometimes you can get from that. Like, oh yeah, I feel strong. Like it can all come together magically, but sometimes
Okay.
it's not. And this is why people searching out pain or mental health problems as well, um, these are profound and can profound impacts, can help with pain, can help with procrastination, can help with imposter syndrome, can help with careers, relationships,
Yeah.
keeping your house clean.
Uh-huh.
And but you might have to experiment with different modalities and might take more than one session.
No, like I said, I work, it works on a quick thing because no, I don't believe, I'm not of the fact that you need to work on things for ages and ages and ages for them
I
to go.
agree with you there.
I've had that experience with many, many, many clients, and it's like, um, actually, interestingly, some of the blocks that you actually wouldn't need to clear is that people have because, like, initially when I first started doing all this rapid change for clients, they're like, yeah, I'm not really sure. Even though their behavior was showing something different, they still had like, yeah, I'm not really sure. Is this really gonna last? I'm not really sure. Turns out they discovered that they had their own blocks around change itself. Change is supposed to be hard. Change is supposed to take a long time. Change is difficult. Because that's the narrative anything
Mm.
that you've watched or seen or
Hmm.
any movie or just like this is the narrative going on around everything. Change has to be hard. Change has to be difficult. Change has to take a long time. And so if you have these beliefs, these blocks, you're seeing everything through that filter anyway. And by when you have a belief, what I mean by that is you cannot see anything outside of that filter. So if you believe that change is hard or change takes a long time, you're not going to see the places where change can be really quick.
Hmm.
You're not going to see the places you have a belief that change is difficult. You're not going to see the places where change is easy. You're just going to totally ignore that. Even if something is easy, you're probably going to make it difficult.
You raise some very, very good points.
So when you clear out the belief, the block, it's not that automatically everything then becomes easy. It's that you have all the options available to you. And when you're clearing out a belief, that's what you're doing. You're allowing all these options in. So if someone believes that they need to work hard, and that's the belief, anything different, anything easy, they're going to make hard. An easy conversation, they're going to make it hard. Something that can be said in like 3 words, they're going to say it in 50 words or like whatever the thing is. Once you clear that out, you then have what the clearing out of belief gives you is options. It gives you choice. I can choose to work hard if I want to. There's times I want to work hard, other times I don't.
Hmm.
Like with your one that you mentioned earlier around appearing smart in front of people, sometimes you might choose to appear smart in front of people. Other times you might not want to. And every single flavor in between.
Hmm. It's
So
not
for
my
example,
driving force in life. I don't have to do it now. I can
yeah,
choose.
you choose. So I don't worry what other people think of me. That's like one of the earliest beliefs I probably cleared around myself, worrying what other people think. But I choose to care what my 9-year-old nephew thinks of me. But I know I'm consciously putting that choice. He doesn't think well of me or for whatever reason, then I can at least go and have the conversation. I'm not saying, oh my God, does it mean I'm not good enough? I'm not worthy? What can I do now? Let me go and buy you some toys so you feel happy with me.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
Hmm.
So when you're clearing out a belief, it's you want to give choice to the person. Because I've had clients say to me as well, let's say we clear out a belief like mistakes are a bad thing. So he's like, your typical perfectionist will have one of these beliefs, mistakes are a bad thing. And consciously, we know that mistakes are a learning tool and things like that. But consciously knowing that doesn't help. Like I told you earlier, trying to consciously know that why you got the belief and it's like, I must remember it. And so clients are like sometimes afraid, or they would be afraid when you're clearing out. But he's like, what does that mean? Does that mean I'll start making a mistake? Like I just make mistakes everywhere and not care about my work? It's like, oh no.
No.
It's down to what you value. What do you value? I value having good work, I take pride in my work. Well, that's what it'll come down to. It'll come down to a value. If you do make a mistake, it won't be like, you won't feel, oh my God, it's the end of the world, that your whole world's going to come crashing down, all the stress that then associated with that. You can learn from it. You can move on easily. You won't have all that extra energy tied into it. You get yourself into knots and wondering what's going to happen, and then it gives you choice. Like I say, it gives you choice. It's not like you're going to purposely go and make mistakes, but a mistake does happen. It's like, okay.
So if someone was
didn't want to cut their sandwiches a certain way, if they didn't cut them a certain way, it's like
if someone was interested in learning more or contacting you, how can they get in contact with you? What's the best way?
They can contact me on my website. It's clear-discover.com.
Okay.
And on that, there's also application for a discovery call. There's the two types of programs I do, which is the clearing and also a discovery program, which is more about discovering your true purpose, which also includes clearing out some of your blocks in the way, so it's easier to discover your true purpose, your vision.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. And I find that your take, because I've had so many mental health counselors on who do sort of tackle more from the conscious side. So hearing your point of view adds a nice contrast.
Yeah.
And your language is just a little bit different, and I think it was perfect. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me, Brandon. Much appreciated.
Okay. And thank you, audience, for listening to us. Have a great day. Cheers.